her background is nerd.
Darren should have gone to school here instead of Cutter, because you are a devil. I can tell you that right now.
She rolls in like she's a Hollywood movie star now. She just she's just here for the camera.
I guess I tooted.
No hard-hitting questions here.
Yeah, Shall we talk about my one-sentence resignation?
Well, welcome to the next edition, or I guess the next, what am I trying to say? Episode. Yeah. That's a good word, yeah. See, you have learned something.
I know. I mean, I don't know what episode we're in right now.
I don't either. But it's the next one, right?
It's the next one.
Always the next one.
It's the next one after the first one or the second one.
And again, this has gotten to be probably our most popular way of doing it now is the road show, if you will. So we are in beautiful downtown Malvern, Arkansas, at Malvern Elementary, and that's exactly right. We got Brigette Wiliams with us this morning, and Brigette, the cool thing about coming in Malvern Elementary is the theme. You know, last time we were here, it was Wizard of Oz, or as Katie says, Toto is how she said that. But looks like we got, I don't know, is it an Under the Sea shark?
We are. MES is fantastic.
Gotcha.
So cute.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Cute.
Yeah.
Our shirt has a nice shark on it. So.
Okay,
awesome.
I got you.
No scary stuff.
No scary. Yeah.
No jaws or anything.
That's right. Yeah. So, reason we come to get you on the podcast today. I mean, there's several things that you do here. We understand your closet's full of hats.
It is. It is.
So, is it here at the elementary only, or do you serve a couple of schools? How does that work?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm in a lot of different places.
Okay.
So I do elementary, gifted and talented.
Okay.
So I see every kid K2.
Wow.
And then I have pull-out GT kids 3rd and 4th grade. And then I go in the afternoons over to the high school, and I'm co-teaching a new broadcasting class there. We got a new big video board at the high school football field, and so the kids have learned how to create graphics for it. And we finally figured out replay last night. That's been a work in progress, so they'll be able to do some replays tonight at the junior high game. They run live stream feeds on it, so it's been fun getting to go back to the high school. I haven't taught at the high school in a long, long time. And then I also do the elementary beta club here. I do the yearbook at the elementary school, and then I also am over a program. We used to have East here, but we went to a new program this year called Learn, Serve, Connect.
Okay.
And it's a community service type class that we start with 3rd grade, and it goes all the way through our 12th grade kids. They get opportunities to serve in their school, their community, and they also learn about whatever it is. So instead of just doing a food drive, they learn about homelessness, food insecurities, and things like that. And so we're excited about that this year and getting to do that.
And I'm assuming it helps them meet the community service requirement.
It does. That 75 hours they have to have before they graduate. But we feel like starting it in 3rd grade, they start to feel the importance of giving back to their community. And instead of just feeling like they have to trudge through 75 hours, we try to give them meaningful, purposeful things that they can do.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. But I guess the next question, what do you do in your spare time, right?
I have lots of hobbies, too. I love to golf. My husband and I are big golfers. And then I also have a little side business where I make T-shirts and things like that. So I have lots of kids that keep me busy, too.
So she never sleeps.
I don't.
Yeah.
So like the Energizer Bunny.
Well, probably some coffee in your life at some point, right?
A lot of Alani's. I'm not a coffee drinker. I don't like coffee, really. I'll drink it occasionally. If I'm at Waffle House, sometimes I have to have a cup of coffee at Waffle House. But
well, you said broadcasting, and that takes me back to when I stood and taught here. Actually, it would be 30 years ago because we're And but Judy, what was Judy's last name? She did
Judy
Prism
Bonds.
Judy Bonds, and so she was the one that really planted that seed in my mind when I got my first job to do a broadcasting program because I have a radio television degree, And so, I mean, it was a natural fit for me. I was at Jesseville at the time as a teacher and coach, and wrote for a grant, and they paid for a lot of stuff. But, back then even they were doing newscasts, sportscasts, that kind of stuff. And so, coming from that background prior to education, I was really excited about that. And because it catches another group of kids that
absolutely
may not be interested in band or athletics, choir, anything like that. But the broadcasting piece, man, some of those kids just flourish.
That's been probably one of my favorite things. I have some kids that I had in elementary school.
Yeah.
And, they didn't really talk a lot. They didn't say a lot. They were kind of kept to themselves. I even have a young man that was actually in our ALE program here. And when I walked into that classroom the first day, and I'm looking around and I'm like, whoa, they're in here, whoa. And then watching them, excitement and the love for learning. Like, they're like, what are we doing today, Miss Bridget? What are we, what do you need me to do? They're sending me emails after school. They're working on stuff, in their own time. They, on Fridays, last Friday for game day, we all got to school by 7:30.
Yep.
And we didn't leave until after the game was over. 10:15, we were packing up. We were the last ones out of the press box. They never once complained. They never once, they're excited to learn. So, and we do, my fourth graders do a little broadcast on Mondays here. It's called the Monday Motivation.
Yeah.
Oh,
And it goes with our theme, and they do a joke of the week. That's their favorite thing. They pick a vocabulary word to share with the rest of the thing, and we're doing a sentence with it and then a definition. We use the green screen, so they kind of get some experience with it. They're weather forecasters. They do the weather for the week.
Yeah.
And so we publish that every Monday. It has the, state law. They have to do the national anthem once a week. And so we have a group of fourth graders that we'll record them tomorrow singing it. And so that'll be on there every week. So they get that component checked off. The teachers don't have to worry about that. So they kind of get a taste of it here. And then the middle school's kind of working on some things to kind of give them a taste of it there. So
yeah, and I think it's important, like you're saying, that exposure at an early age, because you can catch those kids as early as possible. And what I've found out through the years, by catching those kids early and getting them involved, it makes a tremendous difference as they, progress through middle school, through high school, once they found a niche to come in and do that. So
we have a lot of gamers.
Oh, yeah.
They're really, we have VMix, which, runs the cameras and stuff.
Right.
So they're figuring out, it's kind of like my gaming board. I can't run it like they do. Thank God I have them, because it's like they're pushing buttons, and I'm like, what are you pushing that for?
They're teasing you.
Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
And then one of them's running Bolt, which is putting the stuff to the board, and they've got headsets on, and they're having to communicate with each other, and it's really cool to see it all.
And kids, for the most part, are pretty fearless when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like you're saying, we're kind of, little tentative about some things, man. They're full force all the time. And again, that's a great way to learn, I think. I mean, it's one of those failing forward situations. If that didn't work, hey, what did we learn?
We have failed forward many times over the last month, trying to problem solve through things. And yesterday when we were trying to get replay working, it was literally one button that we weren't pushing.
Yeah.
And but they never, I was like, y'all, we got to figure this out. Like, we have to figure this out. And so we just kept, they were Googling, we were watching YouTube videos, we were trying everything. And then I was like, y'all, we didn't push the EXT button. We did not push that all-important external button.
Yeah, right.
And we pushed it, and it came on, and they were like,
what an aha moment.
After
all that, and it was a button.
Yeah.
So it's been really, really, really cool watching them, fail, but then succeed, and learning that it's okay. That's part of life.
Oh, yeah.
And we told them from the beginning, we're going to fail.
Sure.
Like, we're not going to always get it right.
Right.
Stuff's always not going to work. And, from the very beginning, we had issues with where we were going to put our cameras, how they were going to fit with all the other cameras that are already up there that football uses. And just, they've really had to problem solve their way through a lot of things. So.
Well, and that's another great thing about those types of programs is the problem solving. I mean, life lessons and the ability to, we overuse this phrase in education, but to monitor and adjust, but to do it on the fly. I mean, to me, that's a real life skill.
Yeah.
So as far as GT with let's just say the little ones, I know you said you hit what K2.
I see every K2 student. I see the kindergarten students once a month, and then first and second grade come every week.
Okay.
And that's mainly just to provide some time for them to think creatively, to
Right.
problem solve. We do some logic stuff,
Right.
divergent thinking, just trying
Yeah.
to see how their brains are working, how they're doing. Again, a lot of times you catch kids in that environment that necessarily maybe the teacher's not thinking about them as being gifted.
Right. Candace got that a lot.
But but in the when they're given the opportunity to think outside the box,
Right.
or to think on their own, not
Yeah.
so much of our curriculum now is so scripted, and so
Yes.
you
Right.
have to do this, you have to sit here, do this, say this. And so GT kind of gives them that opportunity
yeah.
to think outside the box, to share ideas that they have. Some of them are
Right.
very passionate about certain topics,
Right.
and they don't ever get to express that or share that in a regular classroom setting because the way things are structured now. So with K2 kids, it's just really about allowing them to be creative, allowing them to think outside that box,
Yeah.
encouraging them to think outside that
Right.
box. Because another thing we found is because they're so scripted and so
Yeah.
regimented in the classroom, they don't always get the opportunity to think
Yeah.
for themselves, and they also don't always get the opportunity to fail.
Right.
Especially your gifted kids.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Everything comes fairly easy to them. They make an A on everything. They're not having to really try that hard in the regular classroom. And then I get them in GT and I give them a problem that maybe there's no answer to, or maybe there's a lot of ways to find the answer or whatever. And so they, them trying to figure it out and watching them having to deal with failure for the first time and things like that. And that's a big thing with my third and fourth graders, is just, having that growth mindset. I may not know how to do it now, but, I'm going to figure it out. And so we do a lot of growth mindset, a lot of independent thinking type activities where they have to problem solve and figure it out.
And I think anytime that you can introduce fun into the equation of learning, I mean, that to me that's one of those things that doesn't get addressed or talked about enough. I mean,
Right.
I mean, you have to find that balance.
Well, like my third graders we're starting with a medieval times unit, but they're also going to learn how to play chess as part of that.
Oh, okay, cool.
And so they're not just learning about, which they love castles and knights, and they love all things medieval. They get, in the end, they'll end up cooking a medieval food, and they get to try it. But then they get to end with the chess tournament, and it's set up like the army, and so that we talk about all the different pieces and the structure. So they're learning, and they're being challenged. They're having to do activities that are challenging, but at the same time, like you said, it's fun.
Yeah.
I love the fact that most of the time they don't want to miss my class.
Yeah.
Versus a reading or a math class, they don't want to miss their GT day, or they don't want to miss their GT time, and so it's a fun place to be in education.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
And
So
Bridget is a Malvern alum.
I am.
yeah, she told me that.
What year did you graduate?
98.
Yeah, 98. I was thinking.
One of my favorite things as of recent times, Candace brought in a picture one day and said, "Pick me out." It was back in the 80s. And
it was in the it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
And listen, do you know the struggle
Yeah.
when the big hair was in, and this is natural hair,
Yeah.
and like my mom trying to perm my hair so I could make it look
All
big
the
like
perm.
everybody else, and I was like,
I think
so when straight hair came in, I was like, yes,
She used lots of hairspray, lots
tons.
lots of Aquanet.
Oh yeah,
I
exactly.
could not ever get it to look as good as everybody that had the naturally curly.
But the thing I loved about that whole thing, I think I may have been the only one that picked you out. Everybody was out, like, "That's her," and I'm like, "Are you kidding?"
Oh yeah, he did. He picked me out. He
Yeah,
did.
I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah, because I was trying to think that you were there. I taught from 96 to 99.
Mm-hmm.
And so your brother, is he like a year older than you?
He's behind me. He's 2 years behind me.
2 years behind you. I couldn't remember.
Yeah, he and Laura, he's 2 years, and then she's a year behind.
Yeah, because I was thinking a lot of like senior sponsor, junior sponsor,
Yep.
Malvern. I don't know if you guys still do the homecoming
We do.
floats and it's
We
so
don't do
fun.
floats. We haven't done floats in a while, but we do still do all the homecoming games and
Yeah,
all
I
that
remember
kind of
we'd
stuff.
spend a day
Yeah.
making floats. It was
And
so
we
fun.
still a lot of schools don't, but we still do pep rallies
Yeah.
on Friday before the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all the classes, they have class competitions and
Yeah.
games and stuff every Friday afternoon
Well, that's
during football season.
Yeah,
So.
that makes it fun.
So what brought you to education? I mean, was there a particular teacher or?
I actually started out when I went to college. I was going to be a nurse.
Mhm.
I used to play school all the time growing up.
Right.
And, my brother and sister were my students. And, they had to do exactly what I said. I had the chalkboard,
Yeah.
Back in the chalkboard days. And so I always loved teaching. But then when I got to, high school, it was like, you don't want to be a teacher. There's more money in nursing. There's more, And so when I went to college, I actually got into the nursing program at Henderson and went a year of nursing school to get my RN degree. And I was at the hospital one day, and I just remember thinking, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life.
Right.
Like, this is not what I want to do. And so then I had to really start doing some reflecting and like, okay, so what do I want to do, And teachers, I had some teachers that had always been very influential in, helping me through some really, traumatic stuff that I went through. And it was always, when I thought of that, I always thought of them and how they helped me, through just day-to-day stuff and, made me want to be at school even when I didn't want to be at school.
Right.
And so I thought, I've always loved teaching and learning, and so I'm just going to do it, I'm just going to do it. And so I changed my major. I had to do summer classes and everything to catch up, and then, decided that was it.
So what was your first teaching job?
My first teaching job was a 5th grade math, and I think I taught spelling maybe. Been 23 years ago.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Was at Glen Rose.
Okay.
I taught there for a year, and then I taught there for 2 years, and then I came here and was here I taught 4th grade, the whole class, 4th grade, whole year, and then I had gotten my master's degree. I just finished my master's degree that August in curriculum and instruction, and the GT teacher here retired.
Wow.
And they came and said, would you be interested in teaching GT? And I was like, I don't have my GT certification. And I was like, it's okay, you can get it.
Right. Yeah.
So I just finished my master's degree, and I was, I was that I'm never going back. I'm done. And then they're like, you have to at least go 18 more hours. So I went, enrolled at ULR, and got my GT certification. And I taught GT for 7 years. I hit the 10-year mark, and I was kind of burnt out. I just kind of was like, I don't know if I want to do this. They offered me a job at the bank doing some community outreach and account stuff there. And I was like, I think I might want to try the corporate world. I think it'll be fun. It'll be different. And so I left education, and I went to work at Farmers Bank and Trust for a year. I enjoyed it. It was different.
Right.
It was fun, but again, just like when I was in nursing school, it was like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
This is not where I belong.
Yeah.
I remember going into the president's office one day, and I was bawling, and I was like, I know I told you I wanted to do this, and I feel like I've given it all I've got, but I can't do this. Like, I have to go back to education.
It's
and
the kids.
Yeah. And then I thought, okay, what am I going to do, though? Like, I taught GT for, before that, and so I called Mr. Golden at the time, and I told him, I was like, I really want to get back into education. Do you have any jobs open? He said, I do. He was like, but I don't know if you're going to want to do it or not. And I was like, oh, gosh, this is going to be bad. And he said, I have a 7th through 9th grade ALE job. And I said, oh, my. And so I was like, you know what? I'll do it. I was like, that's how bad I wanted back in education.
Probably loved it, didn't you?
And so got back into education. That first year of junior high ALE was tough. They moved us over to Wilson with the 5th and 6th graders, so we were away. We were having to bus the kids back and forth for stuff, and it was a lot. But I tell everybody all the time, those 3 years in ALE, I taught 1 year of junior high, and then I moved down to 5th and 6th grade ALE. And those 3 years of my teaching probably taught me more about myself, about kids, about life in general, through their eyes, and made me appreciate, my own children, my own, upbringing, and made me also very aware of some things that kids go through that people have no idea.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so that 3 years was probably the most growth I had as an educator.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, on top of that, I had to teach all subjects to grades I hadn't taught before.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge, learning curve, having to learn. Most of them were behind.
Right.
So, we were trying to catch them up and trying to help them meet goals and stuff like that. And, you have some successes, you have some failures in there. But seeing the ones that did succeed, and seeing them now graduated from high school with jobs, families, there's a lot of rewarding parts of that. So that 3 years was probably the most rewarding. And then I think God knew at the end of that 3 years that I was about at my max. And He opened this job back up that I was in before I left to go to the bank. I went right back to my classroom that I was in before, and I've been in GT since then. So
that's
Well,
awesome.
it's interesting you say that about the God thing, because my word for the year is purpose, out of the
Right.
one word book. So I've been trying to get that purpose message out there, remember our purpose. But I
Yep.
read something, I think it was yesterday or the day before, but the whole time we're working toward our purpose, I mean, He's always working with you for
Absolutely.
a bigger purpose.
That's right.
And
That's
same
right.
kind of thing with radio. I mean, I was blessed to do two things I love, education and radio. And I got started in high school, thought, this is going to be it. But through, certain situations, being placed in front of this crowd or this set of kids, like I said, that,
Yeah.
but it really kicked off yesterday when it said, as we work toward our purpose, He's always working toward that bigger purpose.
absolutely.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Amen. That is so
Yep.
true.
So is your husband, what does he do?
He is a coach and history teacher at Magnet.
Okay. All right.
See, she doesn't even have to change color.
Well, that's
That's right.
true.
Just
That's
go,
true.
yeah.
We
Okay.
planned it well.
Yeah. What's he coach over there?
He is cross country,
Okay.
and then assistant girls basketball 7-12.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
busy, busy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're very
absolutely.
busy.
Yeah.
We have his first cross country meet Saturday. So.
Already, man.
Yeah, and then my oldest is a senior at Magnet,
uh-huh.
and he's on the golf team, the basketball
Okay,
team, the
yeah.
baseball team.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
there's
You're
never
definitely.
Yeah.
there's never a dull moment at our
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
But you
can't-
like to be busy.
I
though,
do like to be busy.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm guessing. Sounds like of all the positions you've held. I mean, is it easy to pick a favorite, or is it just one of those situations where you just like being around kids?
I do. I mean, I think in every position there's things I've enjoyed.
Sure.
There's
yeah.
things I can go back
That's
and
fair.
say,
Yeah.
in that position I really enjoyed this. I do love gifted education.
Right.
I feel like broadcasting fits in with
Mhm.
gifted
Sure,
education. I tell
absolutely.
people all the time because the kids are being creative. They're creating graphics. They're, creating their own content.
Did you catch that, Candace? Broadcasting, gifted.
That's right.
Oh, thank you.
Listen, I was trying to just
Finally.
smooth right over
Hey,
that.
finally a guest that gets it.
that's
Okay. All right.
Oh, Bridget,
I'm gonna
don't
be his
tell
favorite
him.
guest.
Don't
Yeah,
tell him
yeah,
it's
yeah,
gifted.
yeah.
Like we're never gonna hear the
There
end
we
of
go.
it now.
Yeah.
It's like,
But I think there's,
Sure.
there's good things and everything. I think this year the broadcasting class has been a blessing because they are so excited.
Oh yeah.
And, I feel like, education's not as fun as
Sure.
I'd like for it
Oh,
to
yeah.
be anymore. And that just kind of is that fun element. And
Right.
then we started a beta club for our elementary kids
Oh
a
wow.
few years back.
Okay.
And we get to go to, we have a local convention here. I host it here at
Right.
MES, but they bring their projects from all over the district. And,
Okay.
we invite people to come in and look at them and judge them. And then if they qualify, they get to go to the state convention in
Right.
Hot Springs in January. And then if they qualify for that, we get to go to national convention.
Right.
So the last few years, I've gotten to take some kids to national convention out of the state of Arkansas
That's
for the
awesome.
first time.
Yeah.
They've gotten to see places and
That's
experience
awesome.
things. And they've gotten some really cool,
Yeah.
life experiences just
Sure.
outside of what whatever they're participating in, whether it be their visual arts projects or, whatever.
Right.
So Beta Club has been a lot of fun, and the kids work hard to get in it.
Mhm.
And so, seeing them work hard, it's devastating when, they don't get the letter saying they
Right.
made it. But I'm a firm believer in setting high expectations
Sure.
and the kids meeting those expectations versus setting the bar low
Oh,
and
yeah.
letting everybody,
Yeah.
because I feel like kids will rise to the occasion.
100%.
They'll do their very best to meet those, expectations and meet those goals if we set those expectations high and then give
Right.
them the resources and the things to do it. And so Beta Club's been a really cool addition
Yeah.
that we've had to. It's a lot of work,
Yeah.
a lot of extra hours,
Sure.
and but the parents are amazing. They get on board with it, and so we have induction next week for that for this
Okay.
new group. We just voted. They just did their officer speeches yesterday and
Yeah.
did their voting for officers, and so teaching them that
Yeah.
parliamentary
Oh, yeah.
procedure and
Mhm.
things like that.
Yeah.
It's really cool, watching the
Yeah.
fourth graders, and then I get to see them. I work with Beta Club all the way through, and so I get to see them
Yeah.
progress and the way that they grow through that. And so we actually have one of our 8th graders this year when we took him to leadership last year, applied to be a national leadership ambassador.
Right.
And this summer at National Convention, she was elected the National
Awesome.
Leadership Ambassador. And
Wow.
there's only 2 in the whole United States.
Right.
And so for us at Malvern, who we just started, our
Yeah.
elementary and junior high beta club a few years ago. And so that's a pretty awesome achievement.
Oh yeah. Well, that's the point I was going to say too. Going to these national things and having kids exposed to schools across the country and let them
Yeah.
know. I mean, absolutely, that could be them.
Yep.
Well, just like you said, they've never been out of Arkansas.
Right.
And
Right.
So they
Yeah.
get to see things.
Yeah,
And know that they can do
exactly.
if they want to do this.
And our
or-
district is amazing. Our school board is amazing to support us and allow us to, fund
Sure.
part of
Oh,
their trip. We
absolutely.
absolutely, we don't pay for all of it because,
Right.
the parents have to go with them and they're still
Sure.
out money. But we can at least help,
Right.
with
Yeah.
some of what they need at least. And so our district's been amazing to support that
Right.
and help us
Right.
grow that program.
So my wife works in education as well, but I mean she's on in the finance office. I'll say it that way of one of our districts. But there are nights we just have to say, you know what? Let's quit talking shop. You ever find that going
Oh.
on at home?
Yes, definitely. And I think, trying to get that balance between,
Right. Oh yeah.
work and
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast this week, and that was one thing she said is you've got to keep your priorities
Oh yeah.
for that season of your life,
Yeah.
and you have to say no to things. And that's,
Yeah.
that's one thing I've learned. If you get your plate too full, if you say yes to too much,
Yeah.
Right.
you can't do anything well.
Right.
That's right.
And,
Yep.
and so over the last, few years, I have learned that although I am busy
Right.
and although I have a lot, I've had to learn to say no to other things so that the things that I
Sure.
do am passionate about and do want to succeed can. And so I think that's, the biggest thing in balancing, home and work is, what night, what night am
Right.
I willing?
Yeah.
And like with broadcasting, we said, we'll do home games
Yes.
because
Yeah.
usually that's one a week,
Right.
for football instead of, multiple,
Right.
like with basketball.
Right. Oh
Yeah.
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 And so just, prioritizing things, saying yes to things that are important in this season, but, no to things that maybe
Right.
they're important, but right now you just,
Oh yeah.
they don't need to be a priority or whatever. So this is Maddox's senior year, and so that's,
Yeah.
been something, a struggle because
Sure.
I don't want to miss anything of his.
Yeah, you
Right.
gotta
But
enjoy
at the
that
same
thing.
time, I have all this new stuff,
Yeah.
going, and so making sure that stays balanced. And
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the thing, and the other part of that too is finding time, for yourself, whether it be
Right.
golf, exercise, whatever the case might
Yeah.
be.
yes,
It's just taking that wind down time to,
even if it's 5 o'clock in the morning, my husband's not
absolutely.
happy. But we were going at 6, but we moved all the start times to school back earlier.
Yeah.
With
Oh,
this
yeah.
minutes thing, we got to get
Yeah.
all the minutes
Yeah.
we can. And so now we're having to go work out at 5 in the morning. So
yeah,
even if it's at 5 in the
Yeah.
morning.
yeah.
So then I'm having to prioritize bedtime because
Yeah.
I'm not very good at that.
Well, yeah.
Once I
that-
start working on something or doing something or
Yeah.
reading a book or whatever, I'm really bad about.
yeah. Oh,
So,
yeah.
prioritizing bedtime and things. I mean,
Yeah.
there's all kinds of things that
Oh, absolutely.
No, I love my sleep. So
Yeah,
Yes.
and the other part
I
of
have
that
to have sleep or nobody will like me.
me too.
is how we're fed, news and just pop culture, all that on our phone, and it's so easy to get wrapped up in something, and you look up and you're like, man, 2 hours have gone by.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, it's got
The
sometimes
scroll.
Oh, yeah.
The deathly scroll.
the deathly scroll.
But I tell my kids that deathly scroll will get
Yep. It'll get
So what's the best piece of advice that somebody's ever given you? Doesn't have to necessarily be with education. Could be about life.
honestly, probably to learn to say no.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
That, Bridget, it's okay to say no.
Oh, yeah.
You don't have to say yes to everything.
Right.
And that, I think when the lady on the podcast said this week, every season's going to have different priorities.
Right. That's
And
sure.
when I started thinking about that, I thought,
Yeah.
when my kids were little, it was a whole different season. And I
Oh,
think
yeah.
about, teachers I know now that have
Yeah.
littles, and I can sympathize with their, where they are with that. And then I think, okay, then I went through the teenagers, now I just have one left at home, but,
Right.
and now I'm kind of moving into these adult kids and,
Mhm.
And then the seasons of my teaching, going from being,
Right.
the rookie and then, to being a more seasoned, and we laugh now and say, it's kind of crazy when you look around the building and you realize you're one of
You're
the
the-
older teachers
Yeah.
in the building.
Experienced.
Yeah,
Experience.
experience.
Veteran.
And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
am I really that? You know, I start thinking
Yeah.
about teachers
Yeah.
when I started
Oh,
that were at the
yeah.
point in my teaching that I am,
Yeah.
and I'm like, oh my goodness, like
Yeah.
how did this happen?
Yeah, I told somebody, like going to AAEA, the big state administrators conference. I can remember, it doesn't seem like that long ago. My first one, I'm thinking, golly, look at all the old farts in
Right,
there.
right, and
And
now
then-
we are them.
And then
We are them.
now I walk in and
Now
like,
I'm- yeah.
hey, somebody let the door to the nursery open. You know, it's crazy.
It is.
for
That's out
sure.
there, and I'm like, we've done this this is year 29. It's just
Yeah.
I know.
why?
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Why?
Crazy.
Well, and I think that the ability to say no sometimes, to me, because I'm there a lot too, whether it be job,
Right.
a miracle, whatever the case might be. But I think part of that is probably one of the cores of just being an educator. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not one of those jobs that you literally can go home and turn it off, because depending on
Right.
what kids you encounter, where they're at that day. I mean, and sometimes I think, some folks that aren't educators lose sight of that. I mean, we do have to make tough calls every day. And some days are much better than others. And for the most part, they're all good days. Some are just
Right.
gooder than others, I guess.
Yeah.
But what I would say to that is it can be taxing, for sure.
Definitely.
So what about bad advice? Anybody ever give you a piece of bad advice?
I mean, I'm sure I've had some bad.
For
advice.
sure, somebody.
Probably that would come more with like buy that car, or
Right.
do that.
Yeah.
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 Do that when
Or like,
really.
that hairdo looked good on you in
Yeah,
the 80s.
yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely bad.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's more just I would say more like just life in general. Just probably listening to somebody I didn't need
Right.
to listen to
Oh, yeah.
instead of listening
Yeah.
to my mom or dad.
Yeah.
Who was
Yeah.
wiser at the time.
Yeah.
And now with adult children,
Yeah.
entering that adult phase, I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, I totally understand.
I'm like,
Yeah,
and
I
I just
get
want to
it.
look at it and go, oh, but I know how this
Yeah.
is going to turn out.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, yeah.
like I've been right there, and they just look at you like,
Yeah.
no, you
Yeah.
haven't.
Yeah.
You haven't.
You don't
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
Even no,
Yeah. That was
you're-
100 years ago. Yeah.
It wasn't. Things are different. It's
Yeah.
going to be
Oh, yeah.
different. And so I just think that I wish I would have listened to the wiser advice
Mhm.
versus friends
Sure.
or boyfriends or
Right.
whatever
Oh, yeah.
at the time.
Oh, yeah.
So when I think of bad advice, I can't really think of like a specific, thing. I just think of lots of
Right.
incidents
Sure.
that
Lots
the
of
advice,
People.
the results
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
of the
Oh,
advice I
yeah.
listened to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing about your own kids. Like I said, it's easy, to tell them something, but it sure is hard to watch them learn. Like, I mean, because we have a 25-year-old. They've been married going on 6 years. They got married in college. And one of those things was because I'm sitting here thinking, man, we got these last couple of years at college. We're going to be buds. Well, he came in and said, we're getting married. I was like, well, okay. So, but I mean, it's worked out great. But again, there's certain things even, as a married couple, young married
Right.
couple, my wife will say, and I'm like, she's like, well, what if? And I'm like, exactly. I mean, we had to
Wow.
figure it out,
And I say that all the time. That's probably the hardest thing to do,
mm-hmm.
even in school.
Oh,
Even
sure.
as a teacher,
Yes.
as a parent, as a teacher, is to allow kids to fail.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And I tell people all the
Yes.
time, like with this broadcasting class, if we don't allow them to fail,
Right.
they're never going to learn.
That's
Oh.
right.
And so, and I feel like, it's the same way, like, my fourth graders are learning how to use Canva and how to,
Right.
create a video and do the animations and all that and use the elements. And they want me to go over there and get their mouse and show them. And honestly, my, OCD perfectionism wants to
Right.
go over there and
Right.
get their mouse and do it for them. But I've learned over the years that failure is one of the most important things we can let kids
Right.
do. And that applies to my own kids too, like
Sure.
you said.
Yeah.
And, sitting back sometimes and watching that process, though, can be painful.
Oh, yeah.
And
for sure.
It is,
Yeah.
'cause
So-
you want to come to the rescue.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's
And,
like,
you want them to succeed.
Right.
I mean, I don't know
Oh,
of any
absolutely.
teacher that walks into their classroom and doesn't want every kid in there to succeed.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when you're having to let them fail in
Yeah.
order to learn a lesson or in order to learn
Yeah.
something, I think
Yeah.
it's hard.
Well, and the thing I think that's interesting about teaching today, outside of knowing your content in your subject area, I mean, you got to put in the work. You got to put in the effort. From a social standpoint to be
those relationships.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't come across as a big old dork like Candace, and they're thinking, man, they cannot connect. What's the deal? So I mean, you got to keep up with TikTok trends. You got to do all that stuff. So
yeah, those relationships are.
Absolutely.
They're like key.
100%.
100%. And that's what I mean. I think that's, I don't know, natural educators have that piece.
Right.
We just want to.
Right.
I definitely think I've gotten better at that. The older I've gotten, I think having my own kids helped with that a lot, because I think you can appreciate, children better when you have them of your own a lot of times. When you're living with one 24 hours a day.
Sure. Well, and that's always kind of been a guiding light for me too. A teacher, coach, administrator. In a particular situation, would I be okay if if that was my kid? Would I be okay with what we're talking about getting done here? So
yeah.
So if we hopped in your car, what's on your playlist?
Oh my goodness, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm all over the place. Like,
are you?
It kind of depends on what mood I'm in. I love K-Love.
Yeah.
It's my go-to, like, get me going in the morning, pep
Till
me up,
somebody cuts you off in traffic and you say a little swear word and you're like, ooh, I feel guilty. Yeah. Okay. Change the channel.
then I'm like, okay, God, okay.
Yeah.
But, I like to start my day with, like, positive, uplifting, like, stuff. And so I've really recently gotten into podcasts, listening to different podcasts. And so when Brett played for Hendricks football the last couple of years, and so we were on the road a lot on the weekends. So that's kind of when we started listening to podcasts to help the time pass faster. And so I do have a lot of podcasts on my playlist. But other than that, I mean, I literally listen to. Yeah. I'm not a huge like rap. Sometimes I just need some like.
Yeah, we talk about this a lot. I mean, if it's like, late 90s, early 2000s Nelly. That's
I love some Nelly.
We can do that.
I don't like all the, like, some of these words.
Oh, yeah.
These lyrics and these.
Exactly.
Like, I just can't. And I really want to, like, post the lyrics and say, do you know what your kids are listening to? Like, do you know what's going into their earbuds, into their brain?
I know. I think about that, but then I think about some of the stuff that we
listen
to, but I'm like.
Well, and then when the kids play it, and for the shock factor, and you just got to hold that poker face like, that's not good.
I think with us, though, again, it goes back to that constant access. Like, we could only listen to music if we were plugged into something. We had to have...
Or had to have it recorded.
Right. I mean,
recorded on the cassette.
we had to have it plugged in, or like, where now,
You're right.
I mean, they have it in their hand 24/7, and they've got their earbuds and or their earbuds. And so, I mean, just that constant access to things
they'll
is
say,
just so different than...
Have you heard this song? And then you're like, no, then boom, they hit a button just right there. Yeah.
Yeah, so that constant... access blows my mind, but I do think
we are old. No,
the music though, I don't think people realize how influential music is.
Oh yeah.
I was telling somebody the other day, when I think of like a big event or something that happened, I can always think of a song that was
or you hear it, and it takes you right back.
And it takes you back to that. Oh, I was here when that song played, or something came on the other day. I was like, oh, they played that at sports dance in the 9th grade, And so music is very influential, and I don't think we realize, how influenced kids are by the music.
Well, and I would say, of course, I worked in country, but I really, that's kind of where I learned that. In that, you could play a song and talk to 3 people, and they each get a different interpretation out of that song. So, it's really no different today with our kids.
No.
And like I say, the verbiage may be a little harsher, but again, it's what they relate to.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I've said this before, but if you could teach everything to music, like you remember it.
Right. Yeah. So, where do you see yourself? Let's just say 5-10 years down the road. I mean, are you going to be one of these?
She's like retirement.
Work forever.
Retirement.
But it sounds like you got enough going on.
I'm nationally board certified.
Okay.
And this is my renewal year. I have to MOC this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have 5 more years.
Gotcha.
Once I renew that.
Right.
And so I plan to stay in education for at least 5 years.
Right.
That will put me over the 28-year mark, that magic number.
Yep.
And then I really don't know after that.
Right.
I enjoy teaching and learning.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing workshops and stuff like that. I've done a lot of professional development stuff. And so,
Yeah.
my kids will all be
Yeah.
grown and gone. Nobody will still be in
Yeah.
school with me. And so, I don't know what God's purpose is going to be.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's going to be a whole new season. So,
That's right. Yeah.
we'll see where my priorities are in that season, and
Oh yeah.
what God's purpose is in that season. And I feel like, like you said, everything that happens every year, every day, I think is preparing me,
Yep.
for that future, for that purpose He has. And so I think just staying the course and staying focused on the season I'm in and not worrying about the next season. I'm bad about, sometimes focusing too much on
Right.
what's going to happen next instead of staying in the present moment.
Yeah,
So.
and living in the present
Yeah.
and enjoying what's going on.
Yep.
But that's kind of human nature. But again, I think that's where the faith piece kind of keeps you grounded.
Right.
If you can really slow down long enough to think about it,
Right.
Yep.
and like you're saying, you can really start to plug in. This is happening for a much larger purpose.
Yeah.
And but when you I get it, when you're in the throes of teaching kids and running around all day, it's hard to focus on that some days.
Yep.
So, well, we appreciate you taking time this morning.
Yeah,
and
I
again,
enjoyed it.
Yeah, and thanks for all you do, and that covers a lot of area,
know.
a whole lot of area. But keep on keeping on, and like I say, I always get excited when I hear folks that are doing broadcasting. I mean, that's starting to really become a popular thing. So, but yeah, just keep doing what you're doing, and we appreciate it for sure, and we appreciate the invite to come to Malvern. We always love coming to Leopard Land.
Love coming to Malvern.
Yeah. I keep waiting for somebody to come up with a yearbook, so I'm not done with that with Candace in school. So we'll
He needs to find some.
we'll have some
Don't even.
information.
Let's just let you enjoy your gifted portion of your
gifted
brain with your
broadcasting.
broadcasting.
That's right.
And that's what what can I say? I mean, hey,
He got labeled today.
hey, we've been doing that we've been doing the podcast. This is our 4th season, so finally somebody gets it. So I should probably should have started out with her, so she could have set the tone. You know what I'm saying?
Set the tone for season 4? Or
No, I'm talking about the season period.
Just
So
the whole thing.
you would
The
have
whole
heard that early on. Yeah, a couple things with Candace and I. We student taught together. We have the same amount of years in, and the reason I look much older is because I work with Candace.
Because you are much older.
And the craziest thing of all, you're looking at a guy that's hired Candace not only once but twice.
Twice.
So what does that say about?
What were you thinking?
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
Well,
Well, again, we do appreciate it. It's been fun.
Yes, it has
enjoyed
been
it
fun.
very much so. So that will put the wraps on this episode of Spilling the Tea in Studio D.